So everything going okay for you there, Paul?
Everything's great. It's a beautiful day here in Ocala, where I am.
Where you at now?
Where are you, Paul? You're frozen. Man, you do a good statue impersonation.
Uh-oh.
We have that's no good. Uh-oh.
So what do you do in these days, Paul? I mean, you've been in the music business forever. So what do you do right now?
I'm doing my forever stuff. I'm doing music. Yeah.
You're busy with that big re-release of one beautiful one fine morning, right?
Another beautiful fine morning. Well, in Ocala, it works a lot better than in Toronto, and we spend a lot of time as well. But these days, as the ravages of time inevitably take their revenge on your body, which every morning when I get up, and I say, well, I got to do all my exercise and practicing and everything, and a little voice says, and why would you want to do that?
So now you are doing that re-release. Are y'all doing any touring now as well?
We are, but the touring so far has been over the last maybe 20 years, mostly in Canada, because Lighthouse is a big band, big horn band, and travel and stuff have become very expensive, and some of the guys have some obligations, and they teach music in schools and things like that, and can't go on the road anymore like we used to go out for 61 nighters in a row.
Who cares about the kids, Paul? It's about your fans. The kids can learn that some other time. Get on the road. Get down here to Arkansas. We have a lot of fans here that like your music, so come on down here to Arkansas.
Well, I would love to come to Arkansas, and so would the other guys. So we got to find a promoter. And we'll speak to our manager and see if we can get down there. What's a good venue for us to play down there? Because I know we do have a lot of fans in the U.S. South, like in Texas and Arkansas and Florida and down through the South.
Bigger.
Come on.
Yeah, Oaklawn Casino. That'd be great.
In fact, casinos are these days. We have been performing out of the United States, out of Miami, because there's a lot of these cruise ships that do classic rock cruises, and with a lot of the bands from our time, obviously Chicago and bands of that nature, they'll book us onto these cruise boats. And the guys love that because they can take a friend or a spouse or something along and have a bit of a thing.
Yeah, because you guys were like one of the first bands to really, a rock band, have a lot of horns and that kind of orchestra, right?
We did. Usually people compare us to, there's two other bands that were kind of made it in that time, 1969, 1970-ish. There was Blood, Sweat, and Tears. There was Lighthouse, and there was Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago. Yeah.
And Blood, Sweat, and Tears was the first. And Al Cooper, who started Blood, Sweat, and Tears, was the keyboard player. He played. He was managed by Albert Grossman, the manager who managed Bob Dylan and Peter, Paul and Mary and Janis Joplin and on and on and on. A lot of big acts in that time. Also managed the band that my co-founder of Lighthouse, Skip Prokop, played in, which was called the Paupers. And Skip was already known when we started Lighthouse. I was a known quantity as a jazz musician and a performer, and I was writing film scores and stuff like that. Wow. But Skip was already a well-known rock and roll. He played with the Mamas and the Papas and a whole bunch of bands. And so what happened was that he was starting Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and his idea was to get a bunch of jazz guys, a bunch of jazz horn players, and a bunch of jazz rhythm section players, and to put them together into a kind of a pop music format and do touring with the horns, with really good horn players.
Very cool.
And we knew about that. Of course, I knew about that as well. I had an offer.
Oh, we have to wait for this.
One night I went into a club in Manhattan, and the band that my co-founder Skip Prokop was in was playing there. And at the intermission, he actually introduced me. He introduced himself to me and said, "Aren't you Paul Hoffert from Toronto?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, how does somebody know me?" And I mean, I was born in Brooklyn, but I was brought up in Canada.
I've been running from the law. You're not supposed to know my name.
Exactly. So anyway, we were talking, and then the next day we ended up sitting next to each other on an airline flight, and that seemed to be the universe speaking to us on coincidence. And he was telling me that he was his manager had asked him to start a new band for Janis Joplin. She was recording with Big Brother and the holding company at the time, and her record company felt that her band, which was okay when they were a bar band and she was Janis Joplin, was not good enough to be a recording band when she became Janis Joplin. So Skip was a drummer, and he was in the midst of putting together a new backup band for Janis, but was having problems, as he related to me on the flight, with how to do that. He felt that he had identified the musical problem in the band, and it was a guitar player. And
God,
spoke to her about
stupid
that.
guitar player.
I won't mention the fellow's name. He's a nice enough guy. But anyway, she was reluctant to get a new guitar player because, number one, he was her boyfriend.
Oh,
There you
Number
go.
two, he was her drug dealer.
oh wow! You can't get rid of him.
So Skip felt
Lady manager.
he might not be able to convince her to make the change, and he was looking for something new to do because the night before when I met him was his last night with the Paupers, who had just broken up. And he had the idea for the band that eventually became Lighthouse. So he was friends with Al Cooper, who was starting Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And we both knew this Canadian singer who became the lead singer in Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And we talked about it. And he said, that's a great idea, get a horn band. But he asked me, he said, do you like any movie scores? And I said, do I like movie scores? I love movie scores, and I've actually scored some movies, and I won a prize at the Cannes Film Festival. And he said, oh my gosh, he said, I love the cowboy movies, and when you see all the horses coming over running wild over the horizon, and the French horns and the strings play and all that stuff. He said, the Beatles are having a big problem now, and they've stopped touring. And I said, yeah, everybody knows about that. We all thought at the time it was Yoko Ono, and it was that was really becoming the issue why they couldn't tour anymore. But apparently not. Apparently the issue was when the Beatles, with their record producer George Martin, started putting all of these piccolo trumpets and string quartets and orchestral sweetening on their records, that they couldn't go out to tour anymore because they couldn't recreate their recordings because of the studio shenanigans, playing the tracks backwards and having orchestras and stuff play. They couldn't reproduce that. And Skip said to me, he said, I have an idea. If only you had a rock and roll band. He said, Al Cooper is putting together a kind of a jazz band. But he said, I'm a rock and roll drummer, but I love jazz. They said, why don't we, put together a band with the jazz horn players, but a rock and roll rhythm section, and also a quartet, 4 string players.
Wow.
And then we could go out and record anything we want, and whatever we record, we can go out and perform it without any gizmo, like no studio equipment, just live band. And he said the problem that everybody has in the rock business, he says, I know all the rock and roll guys. I know the guys that would love to do it, but we need to have a guy who can read and write music, who knows the jazz players, who knows the classical players. And I was working in the studios as an arranger, and he said that this might be would you be interested if the thing with Janice falls through for me, which he said, I think it might, would you be interested in doing it? And I said, yeah, I got to think about it. I got to ask my wife and everything. But anyway, 2 weeks
pay
later,
money? Yes.
Yeah, well, I said 2 weeks later, he called me and I said, how do you put together a band? I mean, I put together, like, jazz bands has nothing at all to do with putting together a band that's going to go and, make a record and go and tour as in the popular music business. And so he said, well, first we have to write some songs, and then we could go and try to sell to a record company. So I said, okay, can we do that? He said, sure. He said, I'll come over starting tomorrow. We'll write some songs. So he came over, and in a couple of days,
Crazy.
we wrote 4 songs.
Yeah, you're doing that like we would talk about watching a Netflix show.
That's what it was. It was like that. I mean, both Skip and I, although we were young, we're in our early 20s, but we were both well known in the music business and earning a living, and we were both already married, and had a child, and but it was all working out for us.
So how does that conversation work? Hey, what are you doing today, Paul? Oh, I'm just going to write a #1 hit, for a movie or a movie score. Nothing. 30 minutes, I'll be done. Then we can go play basketball.
Pretty well.
Oh, okay, fine.
Pretty well. So anyway, we wrote 4 songs. I'll give you the compressed beginning, and then you can ask me some questions. I'm sure you have some. But how Lighthouse got started, we wrote 4 songs. We took the 4 songs down to New York, where we had both been working in different kind of venues. And Skip said, I'll call my manager, Albert Grossman, who everybody knew, and ask him who the record companies are, who the people are. The first record company that we called up was Verve Records, and it was 10 o'clock in the morning. And we called him up, and Skip said, oh, it's Skip Prokop from the Paupers. I'm just starting a new band with my new collaborator, Paul Hoffert. And we wrote 4 songs, and we'd like to bring them down. Maybe you could give them to one of the producers or something, and get some comments and let us know what you think. And they said, sure, come down in an hour at 11 o'clock. So the short story is, at 11 o'clock, we dropped the tape off, and as it turned out, the guy who was the head of, in the old days, record companies, is before they would put everything through artificial intelligence and decide whether a band would sell to 9 to 11-year-old girls and all that kind of stuff. They would actually listen to it. And so this guy who was head of artists and repertoire said, come into the listening room. He said, I'll listen to it with you. And we were impressed. We didn't expect a person of consequence in a record company to actually listen right away. But anyway, he did.
Okay.
And we said, what do you think? And he said, I get it. He says, I know what you guys are thinking. I think it's brilliant. And we said, yeah, it's brilliant. So what do you think we're thinking?
We know what you're thinking.
Whatever it is, add a 0.
So he said, well, all the record companies in pop music have been making the bulk of our money on the big band era. Frank Sinatra, all of the big Count Basie, all of the big bands. And the big bands have all these horn players in them. And sometimes, Guy Lombardo would have strings and stuff like that. And every high school in the United States had a sports team, and they had bands that would go out on a field during intermission.
Of course.
And, play trumpets and trombones and clarinets and saxophones. And then they had a concert band that would have strings in it, and they would play all this. And they said, so what happens is we go and we record the music with these big bands, and then we sell the sheet music to all the high school and college bands who then play the music, and the kids play the music and buy the records. And our whole business is focused on this thing. And now there's this rock and roll thing back in 1968 when we went and had this meeting. And he said, it's all just guitars and drums. And he said, we can't figure out how the business can work because those the guitar players and drummers don't read music very well. And the whole thing.
Everybody's
so that you guys figured out how to have a band that all the kids who are going to high school and college can get the sheet music and the bands can play it. So why don't you guys go have lunch? And I'm going to play this for some of my colleagues because I'm very excited. And after I hear what they have to say, we'll talk. So we went, we had lunch. And after lunch, we came back at 1 o'clock. And they ushered us into
Let me ask you this. Where did you have lunch at?
At some unknown cheap restaurant at the Avenue of the Americas and 53rd Street, where the record company, Verve Record headquarters. I don't remember where we had lunch, but I remember what happened after lunch.
Now let me ask you something. I know you're going down memory lane there, but let me ask you something. Now, when you guys got started, and because you're a very powerful band. I mean, it's not just a easy going band, but when you got started, you really started pounding out the music and everything. What was it like the first time you actually heard one of your songs on the air?
That's a good question. That's a very good question.
I think outside the box.
So first of all, I'll tell you how I got started in the music business because it's relevant. When I was 12 years old, I'm from Brooklyn, New York originally, and in Brooklyn I went to a junior high school, and some friends of mine was starting a rock and roll band, rock and roll like Little Richard and Fats Domino kind of rock and roll. And so I joined the band that playing piano and singing the doo-wop kind of rock and roll of the day. And we played a couple of dances and stuff, and there was a producer at one of them, and he heard us. We were called the Bop Tones. So it was Nicky Bop, Johnny Bop, Stevie Bop, and I was Paulie Bop.
Paulie Bop.
Paulie Bop.
That's a handle right there.
So he said he wanted to produce us, and he took us to Manhattan and produced 2 sides and released a single. So the first recording I had in rock and roll was when I was living in Brooklyn, and it made it into all the jukeboxes. And the first time I heard my song being played in the jukeboxes in the local diners and stuff like that, all of my friends, including a whole bunch of girls and stuff, I was very shy. It wasn't very good. A lot of people go into music because we're not that good with people. Like put us on a stage, we're okay, but human interaction is a little awkward. I was very much in that camp. And I just loved the feeling of being social without having to really be social or inaugurate any kind of conversations.
And you were how old?
So I was 12.
Wow.
And then when I was 16 years old, I had my first jazz record come out, and that also did pretty well for a kid. Anyway, when the first Lighthouse record came out and we heard it playing because it turns out that we ended up with $1 million deal.
Wow.
With RCA Victor, who bought out Verve. Verve signed us to a deal that afternoon and gave Skip and I each $15,000 as a signing bonus, and flew our band Lighthouse down to New York, where we recorded our first album. And by that time, RCA heard about us, bought out Verve, gave us a new, bigger contract, and guaranteed our first U.S. appearance to be a sold-out concert at Carnegie Hall.
Oh,
Holy cow.
So the $15,000 that you got, did that make up the debt that you had from putting all the nickels or quarters in the jukebox playing your song over and over and over and over again?
As I recall, and with huge amount of respect to our wives at the time. My wife, Brenda, we're still married after all this time. She manages Lighthouse. But
yeah, I've talked to her several times.
And our wives basically said, we realize you guys are never going to make any money in music, but if you can get some of this money, we're going to put a down payment on a house. So I think the money was spoken for in both of our cases with our spouses. And did it make up for all the nickels? Who knows? I mean, we're musicians. If you go into music, people who know musicians, you guys know musicians, you interview, you go into, usually, if it's rock and roll, it's drugs and women and stuff like that. With us, it wasn't drugs.
But come on.
But let me ask you something.
Yeah.
On the we've interviewed several people like the Rascals, and it was funny because the people from Woodstock contacted the Rascals and said, "Hey, we want you to play here," and they said, "Hey, we're on the beach right here. We're not going to some cornfield in New York for something called Woodstock." So how did you feel about when you guys passed on Woodstock?
Well, that was an interesting thing. And I was like, both Skip and I made that decision because we were offered to play there, especially since we ended up being managed by the Albert Grossman Agency. So right after our first gig, which there was no band, as I told you guys, there was no Lighthouse. We went in a recording studio. I hired studio musicians, and Ralph got a couple of buddies of his who were rock and roll rhythm section, and we recorded the 4 songs. And then we got this monster record deal, but there was no band. We had no name. We had a Carnegie Hall concert, and as a warm-up the night before or the week before, we had a concert in Toronto at a place called the Rock Pile, and somehow RCA Victor got Duke Ellington to introduce us and he said we were the first of a new wave of rock and roll big bands, and he said I'm beginning to see the light, which was the name of one of his hits, and he said I'm beginning to see the Lighthouse, and they got everybody, and we got all press and everybody there.
Nice.
So we did that. We did the gig in Carnegie Hall, and then the next day we were the opening act for the Jefferson Airplane.
Wow.
Playing 50,000-seat arenas across the United States. So we didn't Lighthouse is not a band that came up through the bars or sitting on the beach. We actually came up with an idea to have a kind of orchestral rock band because we both really like movie scores, and we wanted to have that, that big thing that you go on a stage. And in 1969, by sheer dumb luck, what was happening in the music business was all of these festivals. So there was, and this was before Woodstock, maybe almost a year before Woodstock. So all of a sudden, tens of thousands of music enthusiasts would be coming to these big outdoor fields and arenas. It was before they had pixel boards. It was before they had big sound systems with thousands of watts. And the people were, half a mile back from the stage. Wow. And they could see little dots of, Joni Mitchell playing guitar and Dylan singing his songs. They could hardly hear what they're happening. All of a sudden, Lighthouse becomes this opening act, this new act, and we're playing all this kind of fusion jazz and, big band kind of stuff. But we're spread out. We have 13 musicians spread out over the stage, and we got fiddle players like prancing all over the stage. And we were very visual. And we just played all the festivals. We played all the rock festivals. We played all the jazz festivals, Newport Jazz Festival, Boston Globe Rock Festival, all over. And we became very popular as a touring act. And the first time that I heard that we were on the road, of course, and we were just at first the opening act for others. And then I think by our second or third album, the European and American acts that were getting started, acts like Elton John, who would come to the United States before he had sold any records here. And they were our opening act.
Oh, man.
Played, and we had all those acts that were opening for Lighthouse. And it was very heady. And when we heard our first record on the radio, it was, this wasn't like a little jazz record or like a little thing in your local.
That's amazing.
Thing. It was very humiliating. It's not humiliating, humbling.
Well,
humbling for me. I had no idea. I literally met this guy. I met him at a club, and he says, we should do rock and
that's
roll.
a different story.
He said, you know the difference between rock and roll and jazz? And I said, what is it? He said, jazz musicians have to play thousands of chords, and they only earn like a few dollars. And he says, rock musicians only have to play 3 chords, and they earn thousands of dollars.
Done. So, what we're excited about here, we know you have the re-release of your album, but there's rumors on the street right now that we're really excited about, that y'all are going to start another tour, but it's going to be with gangster rap. Is that
true? You got it half right. You got it all right except for the gangster rap.
Well, you've got the name already, Paul. Pauly Bop. Come on,
Pauly Bop and gangster rap. Yes, that's happening. We're starting a big tour in the United States, and we're just getting it ready. In fact, we just started playing a whole bunch of casinos in Canada because that's a likely one of the kind of venues that that could work for us in the United States.
But I want to go back. How did you say no to Woodstock?
We said no to Woodstock because Skip knew several of the performing artists at Woodstock who had already gone down. We were scheduled for like 3 or 4 days from when we started calling our friends in the other bands and saying, what's it like? And they said, well, they don't have any bathrooms. That was a big one. They thought only, maybe they'd have a couple of thousand people, and now they have tens of thousands of people. There's no food, and it's raining, and it's all muddy, and it's pretty horrible. But they said the music seems to be, everybody's having a great time, everybody's stoned, everybody's like, loving the music, but it's like a happening, and I looked at Skip, and he looked at me, and I said, like, there's no toilets? I hate just saying it. But the lack of facilities, and they said, well, some of the acts, they have to bring them in on a helicopter because they can't get through the crowd. Jeez. Because they just did not, it wasn't well organized. And we said, when we passed. And the other acts from many of the artists in the Albert Grossman stable, such as Janis Joplin and a few of the others, and then the Rascals, as you say, and some of the others, did go, and it helped to really elevate their careers hugely. So we made a decision that, in hindsight, seems like a bad decision, but mea culpa.
I think you're doing fine.
Guilty for that.
We're actually running a little bit short on time, but we want everyone to know what is the best way for people to get your new album, hear the new album, anything new that you have coming up, websites, or what's
we have a new double album. What we did, we particularly released this. Our record company, Universal Records, released this, aiming it at the United States and the fact that we haven't been playing there very much for a long time, and we haven't been releasing records. Our biggest album ever was an LP called One Fine Morning. On it is one of our main big hits called One Fine Morning. And instead of just re-releasing it, we took all the latest technology, this artificial, this AI stuff, and we unmixed all the mixes on the original album from 55 years ago. We rezzed up, made it very, very high resolution, super fidelity, 2026 sound on it, and then remixed it. And I did it exactly the same as I mixed the original album 55 years ago. So on the re-release, if you will, on the anniversary re-release, which is what just came out a month ago, you've got the same creative exactly as you had on the original, but you've got fantastic, super duper sound that we put on the second album. What?
How do people find that?
Oh, the best way to find it nowadays is it's streaming everywhere. You know, Spotify, iMusic, YouTube, all of that. Look up Lighthouse, One Fine Morning, or perhaps Anniversary Edition, and you can buy the actual LPs. Of course, you can buy CDs if you want. It's a two CD package, and we have lots of websites, lots of social media. I would say one of the best websites is Lighthouse Rocks On. That's one word. Lighthouse Rocks On.
We're going to download it ourselves. We definitely want to listen to it.
And you'll get all of the new tracks. And on the second album, that's the bonus record that we include for free, I found 10 of the demos that we submitted for that original LP.
Oh, wow.
And 5 of them made it onto the LP, and 5 of them didn't. The 5 that didn't, we left exactly as they were, so you can hear what didn't make it. And the 5 that did, you can hear the difference between, say, Skip Prokop, who wrote One Fine Morning, playing his demo where he plays guitar and sings it. And when we recorded the hit, of course, our lead singer sang it, and he was playing drums.
Amazing.
So the fans are giving us fantastic feedback.
Wow.
And just remember, Lighthouse Rocks On, or else there's a Facebook page called Lighthouse Official. That. And that'll lead you'll be able to buy the stuff directly online.
We will definitely get that information out to our listeners. We can't wait for you to tour here to Arkansas. We'll, no matter what, wherever you play, we'll make sure they have a bunch of toilets and bathrooms, so you don't have to worry about that.
That's going to be fantastic. And we will play somewhere near you, and you have to promise that we'll get you good seats. You guys come out and shake hands with everybody backstage, and we'll give you a shout-out.
That'll work. And we'll we'll take you out to some of the best barbecue in Arkansas, but unfortunately, you have to pay for it.
I got it.
All right. Man, thank you so much.
That's the easiest thing.
Be safe. Good talking to you.
Playing music when you're an octogenarian is tough.
Keep it up, my friend.
Jumping around.
Be safe. We'll talk soon. All right. Keep doing what you're doing, my friend. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.